All right, hello everybody. This is episode 9 of Blake&Vish Sports. I'm Blake, joined with Vish. Vish, how are you doing? One full
Good.
finals done with almost Christmas tomorrow. Got some
Yeah.
stuff
You got
coming up.
any Christmas plans?
No, just gonna be with family. What about you? Anything?
Yeah, same thing with family. This is actually like the first Christmas or Christmas time I've been here and not in India in about I think like 5 or 6 years. So it's gonna be cool to be around, spend time with my family, maybe exchange some gifts. We'll see.
Yep, gotcha. So for those watching today's episode, we wanted to cover the Pro Bowl and who made the roster for AFC, NFC, and then some guys who we thought, maybe could have been on there and kind of got snubbed from the list. So, do we just want to start with the rosters in general? Like for AFC, we go like position by position.
Sure. And the one thing with the Pro Bowl, and it always bothers me, is that it's kind of like a popularity contest. So
Mm-hmm.
a surprising thing to me this year was that 0 Dallas Cowboys made it. Because usually if you're an above average Dallas Cowboy player, you make the Pro Bowl and everybody thinks you're a star because you made X amount of Pro Bowls. When in reality, you just have a lot of notoriety because you play for the Cowboys and you're talked about a lot. And it's kind of frustrating because like a lot of players on like the Niners or teams that or West Coast teams that don't get the same sort of TV time and
Mm-hmm.
TV type marketing and don't put them players who don't like put themselves out there to be talked about. They just don't get the votes or the respect they deserve in terms of Pro Bowl voting. And we were just hoping to talk about those players and talk about how they did deserve it. It's just that other players were drafted high or play for a team that everybody knows or just are talked about all the time and are overrated by like the media. So we'll get into it.
Yeah. So we'll start with the AFC offense. So the quarterbacks were Mahomes, Josh Allen, and Watson. For me, I don't really see any like bad picks there. I think all those guys those guys all earned it and respectively. I think some people in the media have been saying Tannehill could have made it. I still would say Watson should have made it over him, but Tannehill's like if he makes it in as an alternative, I think that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, for me, that's the only guy I would say Tannehill is the only guy that even has an argument. But those three are pretty set. Maybe
Yeah.
Justin Herbert too. But I
Yeah.
feel like those three are pretty set. The three of them are awesome. They're really great players, and they're probably going to be the AFC Pro Bowl quarterbacks for a while. So
Yeah. Next position. So running back. We had Derrick Henry, Nick Chubb, and Josh Jacobs. So for me, the first two, like no doubt about it, they're 1 and 2 in rushing yards, Henry and Chubb. For me, I don't know if Josh Jacobs should have made it. I know he is a really phenomenal player, but the man did average 3.7 yards a carry this year. And someone like, I know the chat's been saying James Robinson, he's had an awesome year. He's been, he came in as an undrafted free agent this year, and he's been phenomenal. He's been phenomenal this year for the Jaguars offense. He's kind of like the one like bright spot that they have for the future. So I could see him over Jacobs, but Jacobs is not bad at all. Like Jacobs is a good player.
yeah, so Jacobs is a really good player, but he's not having a great season, especially by his standards and the expectations he created in his rookie season. I know he's been banged up and their offensive line has had some COVID issues, but I'd agree with you. The first two are for sure in. Those two are two of the best running backs in the NFL, and Jacobs is one of the better running backs in the NFL. But I think James Robinson's had a phenomenal season, and I guess that's kind of the problem when you play for Jacksonville and your team's only won one game. Even though Jacksonville has been competitive in a lot of these games because of James Robinson, you just don't get that type of fanfare or that type of voting. But I think he should have been a Pro Bowler this year.
For sure. Next, we have the receivers, Tyreek Hill, Stephon Diggs, Keenan Allen, and A.J. Brown. What do you think? Are you fine with all those? I'm pretty good with all of them. A.J. Brown was kind of a surprise. He's amazing. Don't get me wrong. He's one of the younger guys, though. I wasn't really sure if he'd make it or not.
So I think that The first two, Diggs and Tyreek, are no-brainers, right?
Yeah.
Diggs and Tyreek are having phenomenal years. Keenan Allen, for me, maybe there's an argument for another guy, but he's also just a terrific player. I'd argue instead of A.J. Brown, his teammate should have made it Corey Davis. A.J. Brown is better than Corey Davis, but Corey Davis, in my opinion, is having the better season, and he's also a really good player. In my opinion, Corey Davis should have gotten the Pro Bowl nod over A.J. Brown.
And someone who just kind of popped into my head, but who was having a great year, he had to sit out for 6 games, was Will Fuller. I think if he played throughout, he could have been someone who, he's been amazing this year. He's been really good. If he didn't get suspended for PEDs, I honestly think he would have made it over AJ Brown. But AJ Brown is amazing in his own right. I'm just surprised. Usually they don't really have like second year guys actually make the team. It's kind of hard for that to happen. So
right,
we'll see how he does. Next position we had tight end, so Travis Kelce and Waller.
there's nobody else that can make it.
Yeah, that's really not to debate about. Fullback Peyton Richard. I honestly don't know much about him. Patrick Ricard. Okay. I don't know too much about him, honestly.
So he's the Ravens fullback. The Ravens are one of the few teams that consistently uses a fullback. So it's kind of a Kyle Juszczyk case where he's a really good fullback and he's the only fullback everybody knows about. So he makes the Pro Bowl like that. I also don't know. Maybe there's another fullback having a really great season. Unfortunately, I haven't been paying attention to the fullbacks. So I know Patrick Ricard is a good player. And the Ravens run game, though it hasn't been the same as last year, it's still very good. And I understand why he made the Pro Bowl.
Yep. Next, we have the tackle position. So Laramie Tunsil, Eric Fisher, and Orlando Brown. For me, there's one guy who sticks out, and it's Eric Fisher on the Chiefs. I think he's really been getting into the Pro Bowl due to his draft stock and being on the Chiefs. He's really not that great of a left tackle, to be quite honest with you. In that Saints game, he was getting just blown up by Hendrickson. He did simply not look good. The guy on the other side is the guy who's actually amazing on the Chiefs O-line. He's the right tackle.
And he's hurt.
Yep. So I would say Eric Fisher could probably be sub for someone. Tunsil and Orlando Brown are really good tackles, though.
Yeah, I mean, big Orlando Brown and Tunsil, again, work for me. I'm with you on Eric Fisher. I think Eric Fisher, his numbers in terms of giving up sacks looks a lot better because Mahomes is so nimble in the pocket and moves so well. So he makes this offensive line look better than it is. Eric Fisher, to me, I mean, the Super Bowl, just go watch what Nick Bosa did to Eric Fisher. Nick Bosa absolutely destroyed Eric Fisher. Mitchell Schwartz, I agree, is the superstar in that offensive line. I think that's the only kind of weakness I see in the Chiefs roster. And if Schwartz comes back, there's really no weakness. So yeah, I'm with you. As a replacement for him, I don't really have a guy off the top of my head, but maybe a Jedrick Wills. Maybe. Yeah. I mean, he had a good rookie season.
Tackles like Braden Smith or next, we have the guard position. So Quentin Nelson, Joel Bitonio, and David DeCastro. And this was one position who we thought Wyatt Teller, the other Browns guard, was a huge snub. He's debatably been the best guard in the whole league. He's been outstanding. I could see him in over even his own teammate, to be honest.
Yeah, I think the name that sticks out is David DeCastro. And DeCastro has been a Pro Bowl player for a long time, but he's no longer a Pro Bowl player. Wyatt Teller is maybe the best guard in the NFL. I know PFF feels that way, and I'm not always agreeing with PFF, but they grade him as the best guard in the NFL. And the Browns' offensive line has been mauling people. Him and Bitonio both deserve to make the Pro Bowl.
Yep. Next position, we have the centers. So Marquise Pouncey and Ryan Kelly. So for me, Pouncey is a surefire. He's been living off the name Pouncey for years. He really wasn't that good this year. Two guys. One guy I thought was J.C. Treader, who's on the Browns. He actually he came over from the Packers, coincidentally, and he was pretty good for us, and he's been even better for the Browns. And then, is there anyone else, Fish, that you think?
Yeah, the Raiders center, Rodney Hudson, who might be the best center in the NFL. I agree with you with the J.C. Treader. I mean, the Packers are so good at developing offensive linemen. Jeez. But, yeah, not to go off topic. Yeah, Rodney Hudson is a phenomenal player. He might be the best center in the NFL. He's excellent. It's sad that he didn't make the Pro Bowl. I get Ryan Kelly, but to me, Marquise Pouncey is nowhere near a Pro Bowler anymore.
Kelly is a good center, right? Like, Kelly is part of a great line. So, like, I'm not really mad with him getting in, but I just don't think Pouncey is all that great. So
no, not anymore.
Now, for defensive end, we have Garrett, Bosa, and Frank Clark. Bosa and Garrett, no doubt, they definitely should be in. Frank Clark, to me, he hasn't been as good as he was. Like last year in the playoffs, he was an absolute menace. I think, and he's kind of living off some of that play that he had. This year, the Chiefs pass rush hasn't been as good. You know, they only have really Frank Clark and Jones, so you know, he's had more responsibility with that. But I don't know. I feel like he could definitely have been replaced.
Yeah, I don't think Frank Clark has played at the Frank Clark level this year. He's been not Frank Clark, and you know, there's expectations because he's paid a lot of money and he is an excellent player. It's unfortunate that he didn't make it, but yeah, he hasn't played at the Frank Clark level. And I think the guy that should have gotten it was Emmanuel Ogbah from the Miami Dolphins. He's a kind of defensive end, outside linebacker type guy, and he's had a hell of a season. He does a lot of things for them. I know, just watching games like on TV, I've just seen Emmanuel Ogbah wreak havoc. Like the streak that the Dolphins had 3 or 4 games where they had a defensive/special team touchdown. I know Emmanuel Ogbah was responsible for 1 or 2 of them. So he's an excellent player. I think he has 8 or 9 sacks, which is a great number. I think he should have made it over Frank Clark.
And the AFC, like this year's pass rushers, I don't think they've had as many sacks as in prior years, and Ogbah's at the very top of the list, especially for AFC. Moving on, defensive tackle, Chris Jones, Cameron Hayward, Campbell. One guy who should have made it, definitely DeForest Buckner. He's honestly might be the best out of all those guys. And I think he'll probably make the Pro Bowl. I mean, he's been amazing on the Colts. I know you got to watch him on the Niners, so.
Yeah. So DeForest Buckner is going to be an All-Pro this year, at least a second-team All-Pro. Chris Jones, I get. He's still dominant. I think he's a little better personally than DeForest Buckner. But Calais Campbell, again, just another guy who's a Hall of Famer, right? He's a Hall of Fame player, but this feels like Jason Witten when he made Pro Bowls with the Cowboys, those 2 or 3 years when he had 40 catches for 400 yards, you know? Calais Campbell, he's been hurt this year, and he's not at the level of DeForest Buckner anymore. DeForest Buckner has had a dominant season, and he 100% should have been a Pro Bowler and an All-Pro. It's unfortunate that he didn't make it.
Yep. And then outside linebacker, T.J. Watt, Bradley Chubb, Matt on. I think Watt and Chubb definitely deserve. I mean, Watt's going to be in the Defense Player of the Year conversation. Judon only has 5 sacks, though. I think he's kind of living off being like the only pass rusher for the Ravens. I don't really think he should be in there. I think there's definitely guys who've done more this year personally.
Yeah, you know, Chubb has only had 7.5 sacks, but I think a lot of that is because they don't have Von Miller, and so he's been kind of their only pass rusher. I don't know how good of a season Jarrell Casey is. I haven't watched a lot of Broncos football, but I know Jarrell Casey is a very good player, and I know the Broncos just have had injuries everywhere. So the thing with this is another place where I don't understand. Emmanuel Ogbah had 2 different positions where he could have gotten in. This is another one where he should have gotten in. Judon isn't having the kind of season that's going to warrant a Pro Bowl selection. Ogbah is. Like, T.J. Watt is having a Defensive Player of the Year season, so I get it. And Bradley Chubb is better than Judon, so I also get that. But there's no way to me that Judon deserved to make it over Emmanuel Ogbah.
Yep. Next, we have inside linebackers of Darius Leonard and Tremaine Edmonds. I mean, they're both really good, honestly. There's not as many. I think the NFC has a lot better inside linebackers than the AFC does. So both those guys are really good. Leonard, for sure. I mean, he made it as a rookie. He made all as a rookie. So I don't really have any complaints with either of them.
Yeah. Oh, so real quick on Jarrell Casey, he's played only 3 games this season. So just
Okay.
tells you more how hard it's been for Bradley Chubb. And regarding the inside linebackers, Edmonds, he's been hurt this season a little bit. I think he's been banged up, so he hasn't been playing as well, though he's really turning on into form right now. I think he made it more for his name, but Darius Leonard for sure. Darius Leonard to me is a top 3 inside linebacker in the NFL. He's awesome. He for sure should have made it. I mean, instead of Edmonds, I guess we could argue some guys, but Edmonds is still a great player, and he probably deserves to make it, especially if he was healthy all season and not playing banged up.
Yep. And for cornerback, we have Xavier Howard, Tre'Davious White, Marlon Humphrey, and Stephon Gilmore. I'm cool with all those guys. One name to shout in is J.C. Jackson, who's been a turnover machine. Could argue him, but honestly, those 4 guys are all just actually incredible. So I don't have any complaints.
Yeah, so those are 4 of the 5 best cornerbacks in the NFL to me. So it's not, I can't argue with any of them. Again, I think J.C. Jackson was a good call. The other guy would be Bryce Callahan, who's having an awesome season playing the slot cornerback for the Denver Broncos. And PFF, he's another guy PFF loves, and I don't always agree with PFF, but I agree with them on this, especially playing the slot in Vic Fangio's defense is very difficult. It requires a lot of responsibility, and he's doing an amazing job at it. But for overall, I think it's tough to replace Humphrey, Gilmore, White, and Howard.
Yeah. Next, we have the safeties. I'm just going to do both of them. Minkah Fitzpatrick, Justin Simmons, Tyrann Mathieu. Only guy for me who's maybe missing out is Jesse Bates. So he's the safety on the Bengals. He might honestly be the best safety in the league. There's a strong argument for it. He's definitely the best player on a bad Bengals defense, which I think hurts him. And the Bengals have just been, they've won 3 games this year. So kind of tough for him to really get too much notoriety.
Yeah, I'm exactly with you. Those 3 are solid to me. Matthews, obviously, everybody knows how good he is. Same with Minkah. And Justin Simmons has been quietly an excellent player. But, yeah, Jesse Bates has had an amazing season this year. He's been unbelievable. And he's probably a cornerstone player for the Bengals. Hopefully he gets kind of the Budda Baker treatment where people, if the team gets a little better and they play a little more on live TV games, people start to realize how good he is because he's phenomenal. He definitely has an argument, but I think those 3, it's not egregious to leave Jesse Bates out if you're putting those 3 in.
So next I'm going to just do all special teams. So Morgan Cox, Jake Bailey as the punter. Morgan Cox was the long snapper. Justin Tucker, kicker. Returner is Andre Roberts from the Bills, and then Matthew Slater as per usual. Yeah, I honestly don't know too much. The only other person instead of Tucker who I'd place, but I'm not mad they didn't, is Jason Sanders, who's actually been really good this year. He's the Dolphins kicker. He's 8 of 8 from beyond 50, or he hasn't missed beyond 50, so he's amazing. But Justin Tucker he might be the best kicker ever, so kind of hard to exclude that guy from the Pro Bowl roster. Yeah,
pretty much. That's kind of what it is. I think Harrison Butker's also had a pretty good season. I think he's only missed 2 kicks, and he's 3 for 3 for beyond 50 yards. But you can't really replace Justin Tucker. This is the greatest kicker we've ever seen. In regards to the other special teamers, I know absolutely nothing about long snappers, so I'm not going to pretend like there's another guy that should have made it. Jake Bailey's a really good punter. I think the guy that missed out, and that's because he wasn't healthy, is the best punter in the NFL, and that's Brett Kern from the Titans. But he's been hurt this season. But to me, he's a cinch Pro Bowler when he's healthy. And then Andre Roberts has been a very good kick returner for a while. So he for sure is deserving of that honor.
Yep. And now let's get over to the NFC. So the quarterbacks, Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, Kyler Murray. I mean, those are all pretty much household names at this point. I'm not really mad with any of those guys making it. I all think they kind of deserved it.
Yeah, the only guy I think would have had an argument, and that was if he stayed healthy, would have been Dak. Otherwise, I think those 3 are pretty much the 3 that should have made it. I mean, Rodgers is my MVP this season. Wilson's having a really good season, though it's been kind of a roller coaster in terms of how up and down it's been. And Kyler Murray is basically carrying an entire offense with DeAndre Hopkins and basically putting a team in playoff contention just single-handedly with him and DeAndre Hopkins. So I don't understand. Maybe Tom Brady, just because of what he's doing at 43, but to me, he's not better than what Kyler Murray's doing.
Yeah, I don't think he is either. Yeah, that's pretty tough to beat any of those guys out. Now for running back, Dalvin Cook, Alvin Kamara, Aaron Jones. So I honestly think Aaron Jones should have got in last year over Zeke. And I don't know if Aaron Jones should have made it this year. Tough to say like who else would have made it at running back. The top two for sure. We know McCaffrey was injured for like the whole year, right? So you can't really put him in. Do you have anything that you think could have made it in there?
No, I think these three are right on. I mean, Aaron Jones is averaging 5.5 yards a carry.
Mm-hmm.
He's been dominant when he plays. He's been phenomenal. And Dalvin Cook, to me, is the best running back in the NFL. So there's no way he can't make it. And I think he deserves to win Offensive Player of the Year. And Alvin Kamara's production has only slowed down just a little bit because Taysom Hill runs the ball for them in the red zone. But now with Breeze back, they're going to be checking it down to him every other play. So he's going to be dominating and carrying their offense again.
Yeah. Next position we got, receivers. So there's Devontae Adams, DeAndre Hopkins, DK Metcalf, and Justin Jefferson. I think the first three, there's really nothing to say about those. Those are sure locks. I think Justin Jefferson's amazing. I don't know if he should. I don't know if there's any other guys that maybe have an argument over him. Like even Thielen, his own teammate. He's been amazing this year too. Do you have anyone you think maybe made it over him?
No, I thought Justin Jefferson, just because you're a rookie and you're doing this, I mean, all the household guys usually we talk about, like an Amari Cooper, he hasn't had that type of season. I think maybe the only guy is Tyler Lockett, and that's because it feels like he's very good every season, doesn't make it. And then someone brought it up in the chat, Terry McLaurin, he's the other guy. But to me, DK, Devontae, and DeAndre are in for sure. And I'm not too mad that one spot was given to Jefferson instead of Terry McLaurin. And it's biased too because I really like Justin Jefferson, but it doesn't really bother me that much. But absolutely, Terry McLaurin should have gotten some sort of honorary vote. I mean, there's a chance that if the Packers go to the Super Bowl or the Seahawks go to the Super Bowl, that he might get in anyway because those guys wouldn't play in the Pro Bowl.
I think one name also, Allen Robinson on the Bears. You could throw him in there, and I really don't think it'd be a problem. He's been amazing let's face it, the Bears quarterback situation is far, far less than ideal. I mean, I'd rather have Kirk than Trubisky any day of the week. So Allen Robinson's another guy, but I'm fine with Jefferson being in there. He's played amazing as a rookie. Now let's get to one position which I'm not too happy about. It's tight end. So TJ Hawkinson and Evan Ingram. See Evan Ingram in there, man. He has not been anything close to what Robert Tonyan has. Bobby T, my man on the Packers, he has 10 touchdowns compared to 1 for Ingram. Ingram, his catch rate is 50%. I don't know if you're watching, but the Eagles game, Giants-Eagles, he literally dropped the game-sealing win or game-sealing catch for the win. He's not a good blocker. He's really just fast, and he was a first-round pick. He really just should not have made it. I mean, you could even argue Jimmy Graham over him, or so many other tight ends could have made it over him.
He's an average. Yeah, Evan Ingram's okay. Real quick, Kevin Wang, I have no clue how to enable Super Chat. I don't even know if we can enable Super Chat because our channel is not monetized. I'll look into it for the next stream. Second, there's no way. To me, Hawkinson is a very good player, and his numbers aren't the best, but they're good enough, and he should have been in the Pro Bowl. To me, Robert Tonyan, this is a Pro Bowl season from a tight end. I mean, 10 touchdowns is leading the NFL. That alone should have gotten him into the Pro Bowl. He is the Pro Bowl tight end. And I think if there was a George Kittle in there over him and it was George Kittle and Hawkinson, you could say, okay, well, those two guys are better than Tonyan.
Mhm.
I don't think there's any argument here. I think Tanyan's a better player than Evan Ingram, so I don't think you could say put Evan Ingram with Rodgers and he would have better production. I don't feel that way because Evan Ingram's, to me, is just kind of the only thing he has over Tonyan is he's faster. I think Tonyan has better hands. I think he's a better blocker. I think he's got better wiggle to get open. So for me, yeah, Bobby T should have been in for sure.
Sad. The fullback was Kyle Juszczyk. I don't really think we need to talk about this. It's pretty obvious he's like the best tight end. Fullback, sorry. But yeah, he definitely should have made it. For tackles, it was David Bakhtiari, Trent Williams, and Teron Armstead. Bakhtiari and Williams for sure. Armstead recently, though, has not been playing as.
I think he's banged up.
It could be that, but he was kind of getting abused in the Chiefs game and other games I've seen. He was getting tossed around a little bit, but he's still a really good tackle. I think Ramczyk should have made it over him. The other,
you could argue.
I think Ryan Ramczyk should have made it over him, but it's what it is.
I think Tristan Wirfs is the other guy that had an argument. He's had an amazing rookie season, and you could probably say maybe that he should have made it over Armstead. But Armstead is also a household name, a guy who's been a great left tackle for like 4 or 5 years, so I get it. But yeah, for me, it should have been Bakhtiari, Williams, Wirfs. Yep.
And then for guard, we have Brandon Sheriff, Elton Jenkins, Andrew Speed. I think Sheriff and Jenkins definitely should have made it. Jenkins, if you watch any Packers game and you see the O-line, you don't know where Elton Jenkins is going to be because he can play literally any position, which is huge. He's mainly a left guard, but he's playing center recently due to Lindsley's injury. I think he should have made it. Same with Sheriff. He's one of the only bright spots on the football team's offense. And Andrew Pete's a good guard for the Saints. So I don't know. What do you think about that position?
Yeah, no, I don't think Andrew Peete should have made it. I think Ali Marpet should have made it from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He might be the best player on their offensive line. He's having an excellent season. He's had a very good career thus far. And I think he should have made it over Andrew Peete, who's a good player, but he's not been a Pro Bowler this year. He's not.
Yeah. And if I remember this correctly, he was getting abused in the divisional round game last year. Or no, it was wild card. It was Saints and
Saints and they put Everson Griffin and Danielle Hunter inside, and then Danielle Hunter was absolutely destroying, and Everson Griffin were just working him.
Yeah. Next, we're going to go with centers. So Jason Kelsey and Frank Ragnow. What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, so both are good, right? And Ragnow has the incredible story of playing with a broken throat, which I don't even know how to break your throat. Yeah, but for me, the guy that should have made it was Corey Linsley from the Packers. I know David Bakhtiari made a point to tweet about it. Yeah, he's had an excellent season. Again, just an incredible find from the Packers on another offensive lineman. And then just another Bucs offensive lineman who I think has played really well and was playing really well, and that's Ryan Jensen. I think he should have at least gotten more. I don't know if he was considered. I don't know what the ordeal was, but I think he should definitely at least be an alternate. But for me, it should probably be Jason Kelsey and Corey Linsley first.
I think with Linsley, is his injury kind of set him back, so he's missed the last few weeks, and that does factor in, especially if you're voting like before season ends and whatnot. Now let's go to the defensive side. The defensive ends are Cameron Jordan, Brandon Graham, and Chase Young. Those are all really good. Those guys are all really good. The NFC's pass rush is just like amazing. And they're still outside linebackers. Like the defensive end outside linebacker, it's pretty much if you're an edge player, like you can get voted into either of those, which I don't know if I entirely agree with. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, for me, Chase Young got in on name alone. He's been good, but he's not been one of the 3 best edge rushers in the NFC. I'd argue that the best defensive lineman on his team is the guy that plays next to him inside, and that's Jonathan Allen. And Daron Payne is also a monster, and Montez Sweat is playing well. It's not just the numbers. He had 5.5 sacks. And Chase Young's probably going to be a Pro Bowler. in the defensive line forever, but I didn't think he deserved it this year. To me, Brandon Graham for sure deserved it. He's been awesome for so long. I just wanted him to get in on feel good, and Cam Jordan has been just a great player for a while. For me, the guy that should have made it, and he's kind of the defensive end, outside linebacker hybrid, and that's what's his face? Excuse me, that's Brian Burns. Brian Burns has had an outstanding season. He kind of plays like a young Von Miller. It's kind of blasphemous to say, but he plays that way. He's fantastic. And to me, he's a better player right now than Chase Young, and he should have made the Pro Bowl.
You could also argue Trey Hendrickson, the other guy. He's been awesome this year. I think he's top 5 in sacks, and no, he's awesome. I mean, if you watch the Chiefs game, it was he was just making Eric Fisher look like a baby out there. And he's always in Mahomes' face. If Mahomes wasn't getting the ball out on time and fast or scrambling like he always does, he is really, really special. Yeah,
Hendrickson's the other guy. To me, Hendrickson's had a better season than Chase Young. You can't tell me otherwise. He should have made it over Chase Young. Because Chase Young's going to make the next 10 Pro Bowls probably. I'm not sure Hendrickson's going to have a season like this again.
Yeah. Next, we're going DT. So Aaron Donald, Fletcher Cox, and Grady Jarrett. These dudes are all amazing. I can't complain about any of those picks, to be honest with you. A name to put in there would be Sheldon Rankins, also on the Saints. He's a really good DT. I don't know if he's better than any of them, but he's been really good. And the top 2 guys, so Donald and Fletcher Cox, there's just no debate. They have to be in there.
Yeah. I mean, Rankins has had a good season. His problem has always been injuries, and he stayed healthy for the most part this season, but he's more of a run-stopping guy for them. I think David Onyemata is their pass rushing guy. But for me in defensive tackle, Jonathan Allen would be the name that I would put out. It's tough to argue because Aaron Donald's maybe the best player in the NFL, and Fletcher Cox has been as good as anybody at defensive tackle for years upon years. And Grady Jarrett is awesome. He's one of the guys that doesn't get talked about enough for how good he is.
He's the only guy on the team.
Right, because he plays for the Falcons. So, but for me, Jonathan Allen he's a guy that I would say he's played at a Pro Bowl level. And, I guess it's a numbers game, but he should he's a Pro Bowler to me.
Yep. And now outside linebacker. So this is more of the edge position. Like we mentioned, DE and outside linebacker kind of interchangeable, but Khalil Mack, Zadarius Smith, and Jason Pierre-Paul. We just wanted to make a statement that the outside, we don't think there should be 6 edge players. I feel like it should be 5 edge players and then 3 off-ball linebackers. So that would be Fred Warner, your Wagners. And then the one guy who I feel like you could throw in at outside linebacker would be Levante David on the Buccaneers. I know Devin White, I mentioned him as being underrated, and he definitely is. He has 8 sacks this year, tons of tackles. He's amazing. But Levante David is the heart and center of that defense. I think he made it in over outside linebacker, probably over his teammate JPP. Although JPP, I don't know how he does it with 8.5 fingers, but he's awesome still.
Yeah, so for sure on Levante David, right? And I think with the off-ball linebackers, I'd argue with Devin White. It's like Jamal Adams. If they blitz you that many times, you're going to get sacks. And these other guys don't get blitzed like that, so they don't have your same sack numbers. It's a very novel concept. But it's not. Go ahead.
I was just saying, I think it's also fair to say, they're also just really good blitzers too.
True.
Devin White, if he's coming through the middle, it's pretty tough for a middle linebacker to block him. Now, is that more valuable than him being in coverage? I would say probably not. I'd rather have your linebacker play coverage, right?
I don't think he's very good in coverage, and I think they blitz him to protect him because he's not that good in coverage. And I think that if you blitz a guy like Bobby Wagner, he could have 10 sacks in a season. I'd argue Fred Warner, Eric Kendricks, these kind of guys. Even his teammate Levante David could have 8.5 sacks. I think Levante David's been snubbed from every type of award long enough, and the Bucs are good this year. It should have been a no-brainer to put him in. And then I still think that Brian Burns should have made it over your guy Zadarius Smith. I think Zadarius Smith's production comes uneven where he kind of beats up on bad teams when they blitz a lot because the Packers get up ahead and bad offensive lines, and he gets 3-4 sacks in that game. And then you play a good team, and Zadarius Smith isn't really creating any type of rush. He isn't creating any type of pressure. So in that sense, I think Brian Burns would make it. But he has 11.5 sacks, and he got snubbed big time last year. So I get him making the Pro Bowl.
I think him and Aaron Jones were carried over from people last year. Like Zadarius should have made it last year. Aaron Jones should have made it last year. They made it this year, and it's not like they didn't play a ton worse. They played similar. Their stats just aren't as good as last year, and that's pretty important. But I'm fine with them being in there. Maybe it's because I'm more of a Packers homer, but I'm happy Zadarius is kind of getting recognized for how much of a beast he's been over the last few years.
Right. And then the inside linebackers is Fred Warner, Bobby Wagner. You won't find any arguments from me. I know I'm a Niners fan, but I think Fred Warner is the best linebacker, middle linebacker in the NFL. I feel that way. I do. He's really good. He's really great in coverage. I think their scheme does help him in coverage, but he's also phenomenal for the things he can do in coverage. And then Bobby Wagner is Bobby Wagner. Maybe lost a half step this year, but he's still Bobby Wagner, Hall of Famer.
And me and Vish talked about this. We think that there should be either another inside linebacker position or one of the outside linebacker positions should be an off-ball guy, because Eric Kendricks on the Vikings, I think the best 4 inside linebackers are David, Kendricks, Warner, and Wagner. And the fact that 2 of those guys are not on the Pro Bowl roster is just messed up, because, you could probably have Warner at the top, but not having Kendricks in there is ridiculous to me. I have to watch him play twice a year because he plays the Packers twice, but the man has covered Devontae Adams on a seam route. As a middle linebacker, I don't know.
He's unbelievable.
I don't know who else in the league could do that, to be honest with you.
Fred Warner.
Maybe.
The other guy is Demario Davis, right? Demario Davis has been dominating for the Saints. He sets the tone. He's he's physical. He's fantastic. He's the guy. He's another guy I would say that definitely should have made it. I think putting 6 edge players in there is somewhat disingenuous. If you're going to put 8 total defensive ends / linebackers, to me, you should put 4 edge players, outside linebackers, 2 defensive ends, and you should put 4 middle linebackers. And it should have been some combination of Wagner, Warner, Levante David, Eric Kendricks, and Demario Davis. It should have been 4 of those 5. It's unfortunate that they positionally just took 3 excellent players and basically did not allow them to make the Pro Bowl.
JPP's been really good, right? He's actually been phenomenal. But I think Eric Kendricks has had a better year.
I agree.
And I'd rather have Eric Kendricks than him. So, it's tough how they set the rankings up. But so cornerbacks, Jalen Ramsey, Jair Alexander, Marshawn Lattimore, and James Bradbury. So the top 2, Ramsey and Alexander, I'm totally fine with. I'm also fine with James Bradbury. I've been someone who's noticed how good he is, and he's actually a stud on the Giants. Marshawn Lattimore, I think he's getting in on name. On prime time, you'll see him clamp Mike Evans, right? But his passer rating when him this year has been 117. That is not Pro Bowl good by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, it isn't that Marshawn Lattimore isn't good. It's that he's only great sometimes. When he plays his best, he is a Pro Bowl corner. He's an all-pro corner. He's one of the best corners in the NFL. The problem is there's just too many games where he doesn't play his best. Remember, you said it. It's one of the funnier things I've heard when it comes to football. You said if Marshawn Lattimore plays Mike Evans 16 games a season, he'd be Deion Sanders. And I agree with that. It's unfortunate that he doesn't play that way every time. I think a guy that kind of got the snub would be Jason Verrett on the 49ers, especially because the story is phenomenal. I think Jason Verrett's had this great story and a great season, and he definitely should have been a Pro Bowl corner. Do you have anybody else?
I'm trying to think of who I'd throw in there for him. Not really too many names are coming to mind. Verrett's would definitely be a good shout, considering just not only a feel-good story, because he kind of is, the fact that he hasn't played and now he's playing back to his form in 2016 when he was actually amazing. It'd be tough for me to think of someone, but if I'd really dug deep, I'm sure there's corners that are more deserving than Lattimore.
Mm-hmm.
And the next position is one that I think there's definitely some people that shouldn't have made it. So it's the safeties position: Quandre Diggs, Buda Baker, and Jamal Adams. So for me,
You want me to hit this one first? Because I got a lot to say.
I'll make it short and sweet. So the fact that two safeties on one of the historically worst pass defenses in the league made it, that just doesn't add up. You can go, Vish.
Yeah, so real quick with the corners, another guy, he just came to my head, would be Darius Williams on the Rams.
Mm-hmm.
He's had an awesome season playing on the other side of
Troy Hill, too.
Yeah, Troy Hill's been great too. So with the safeties, I have a big problem. So Buda Baker to me is a no-brainer. I think Buda Baker is the best safety in the NFL. So I think Buda Baker should have made it 100%. The other two safeties I don't get, and it's not just because I'm a Niners fan. Like Quandre Diggs, I actually get more than Jamal Adams. To me, Jamal Adams made the Pro Bowl because he's a good football player that rushes the passer because they blitz him 25 times a game. And now, oh, look, he gets 8.5 sacks. Yeah, well, if you blitzed a lot of different safeties that many times a game, they could approximate his production, and he gets paid, and they gave up 2 first rounds and a second for him. If Jamal Adams is going to make the Pro Bowl based on sacks, then put him in with the edge rushers. Frankly, he has more sacks than some of the edge rushers who made it. But yeah, Quandre Diggs, I get to an extent. Quandre Diggs has had a good season. To me, he's not having a better season than Harrison Smith, who should have made the Pro Bowl. Jimmy Ward, a guy in the Niners who gets 0 love, 0 notoriety. I don't think there's many safeties in the NFL that can do what he does. One of Jamal Adams' worst plays this year was he had to guard Stephon Diggs in the slot, and Stephon Diggs abused him. Jimmy Ward, every game, has to guard somebody in the slot. They literally protected Richard Sherman, who still, to me, looks hurt. They protected him this season by having him play safety, and what they would do is they would play 2 robber safeties and put Jimmy Ward on man coverage on anybody, and he'd lock him up. And then the third guy would be John Johnson on the Rams. He also was deserving. He's been phenomenal this season. He's been one of the more underrated players, and the Rams defense is so excellent. They should have more than 2 players making the Pro Bowl. Like Leonard Floyd should have gotten some sort of consideration as well to me, but there's a lot of edge rushers. But absolutely to me, besides Buda Baker, the other 2 safeties are questionable. I think Quandre Diggs is the better decision though. Jamal Adams should have made it as an edge rusher or an outside linebacker. He should not have made it as a strong safety over those guys.
Especially someone who's like not the best in coverage. Like that should be your main role as a safety, right? Like you're in zone or man or something, but he blitzes a ton and he's like a good blitzer. I think you might be underselling like how good of a blitzer he is, but it's something like you're not like, you'd rather your safety be in coverage, right? Like that's the point. And I think 2 names to throw out would be Anthony Harris on the Vikings. He's pretty undershadowed. PFF loves this man. They're not the say all do all, but watching the Vikings, like the fact that what Zimmer's doing there has been incredible with only like 3 actually like pretty good players in Harris, Smith, and then Kendricks. But not to get on too much rant. And then the other guy I'd say is Adrian this year. I'm not mad that he didn't make it. I knew he wouldn't, but he's been actually really, really good for the Packers this year. And it's nice going from Kentrell Bryce to Adrian Amos. It's just you can sleep better at night. Yeah,
so those 2 guys are super solid players. I just argue that the guys I mentioned,
the other guys should probably make it over.
Deserving. But for the most part, I definitely agree with you. And I agree about the underselling Jamal Adams. What I meant by that is if you blitz another safety the same amount as Jamal Adams, they might not get 8.5 sacks, but they might get 4.5 or 5, which is still a remarkable number from a safety.
Mm-hmm. The last position, so special teams, we have Tyler Oates, the long snapper, Jack Fox, the punter, Young-Ho Koo, the kicker, Cordero Patterson, the returner, and then Nick Bellore, the special teamer. Again, I don't know anything about Nick Bellore or Tyler Oates. I'm not too big on the long snapper or special teams positions. I'm sure they must have a good, like they're good gunners or good long snappers. Cordell Patterson should have made it for sure. I think he might be the best kick returner ever if you're looking at touchdowns and then yards per return. He's very on both of those. Think about the other Vish. Any of the ones.
So I'm not mad about Young-Ho Koo. I'm actually very happy about that. I think he deserved it. He's had an awesome season. Cordell Patterson, totally agree with you. Nick Bellore is actually a former 49er, and I know he's a great special teamer, so I'm not surprised that he made the Pro Bowl team. Jack Fox, I do understand that he made it, and I'm happy that a Lions player actually made the Pro Bowl. That's impressive to me. Like, Matthew Stafford has been robbed how many different times of making the Pro Bowl. The guy I would argue that should have made it is the Seahawks punter, Michael Dickinson.
Yeah,
he averages really 0.1 yards per punt more than Jack Fox, so the difference is really negligible. He's just been a really good punter for a while, and I think he should have made it.
Yeah, punter, they always mention it, but the way he kicks differently than a lot of people, and he does the kickoffs too. He's got an actual boot of a leg. So
yeah, it's actually Michael really Dixon. Good. I keep calling him Michael Dickinson. It's Dixon.
Yeah. All right, so that covers the AFC and NFC rosters. Now we want to kind of transition into the Week 16 games. So on our channel, we have a betting guide, and I talked about my picks for those games. So if you want to see that, you can. Vish isn't on the betting video, but like if you want to see other people's predictions too, you can. And we'll give our predictions for after the game. But the first game we wanted to highlight is going to be the Sunday night game, and it's the Titans-Packers. So Vish, what are your first impressions of Sunday night game?
Offensive shootout. There's no chance that the Packers defense is going to be able to stop this Titans offense. They don't have enough big people to stop the run. Roger Saffold is going to be mauling Kenny Clark and the Packers defensive line, and Derrick Henry is going to be running all day. And then you bring the play action off of it. Like if Mike Pettin tries to play nickel and blitzes, they're just going to run the ball all over. And if he tries to play big and they hit him with the play action, Kevin King's a very good player, but Corey Davis and A.J. Brown, I think, are a little too much for him to handle, especially with a guy who's as accurate as Ryan Tannehill throwing the ball. So I think that it's going to be an offensive clinic for the Titans offense, but the Packers offense is also going to just put on a show. Aaron Jones is healthy now. The offensive line is playing great. Aaron Rodgers is the MVP in the NFL, and nobody can stop Devontae Adams. And I don't think the Titans have anybody that can stop Devontae Adams. So I think I think both offenses are going to be unstoppable, and it's going to be kind of a who gets the ball last type ball game.
So with that too, the Titans pass rush might be one of the worst in the league. I'd say bottom 5. Sans the Falcons, probably the worst in my eyes. But yeah, they can't manufacture any pressure. And if you give Rodgers 5-6 seconds back there, he's going to rip them apart. I actually don't think this will be as high scoring as many people think it will be. I think it'll be like both teams don't really turn the ball over that much. Both teams don't force too many turnovers as far as I'm concerned. I think it'll be a lot of longer drives, and there will be fewer possessions. I don't think it'll be like just touchdown after touchdown. I could see it that way just due to the nature of like strength versus weakness for both teams' offense versus the other team's defense. But I think it'll be more of a like the teams are just fewer possessions. They're both scoring on each other a lot, but it'll be a slower game, less turnovers.
I could actually see that, but I still think both offenses are going to have no problem scoring. So I could see it being like 35-35 who gets the ball last, and both teams have had the ball 7 times in the game, and they've scored touchdowns on 5 out of the 7 drives. I just don't know how either defense is going to be able to get a stop. And over-under on Henry going 150-plus yards, I'd smash the over. The Packers have struggled with this run scheme, be it Raheem Mostert, be it Dalvin Cook. They don't know how to stop the outside zone. The Titans' run game is pretty similar to the Kyle Shanahan run game. It's outside zone. It's inside zone with the sift action, and then they run play action off of it. Derrick Henry is just a manimal. They're going to run the ball all over the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, and so the Packers' defense is ranked like 11 in rush yards allowed. Just do not let that fool you at all. If you watch this team, like they'll usually get a big lead going into after the end of the first half, right? And then teams, they have to run the ball, catch up. Yeah, you're not running the ball when you're down 14, right? At least most of the time. And I think if you watch the Colts game, they were just turning 5 yards after 5 yards. And Mike Pettin is a guy who does not like 20-plus yard passes on them. They're always 2 safeties deep, and they always play nickel, which is kind of a frustrating thing because teams can run at will on them, right? So they don't allow the big play, and they'd rather you like dink and dunk your way down. And I think the Titans will do just that on offense. And their play action is actually going to kill the Packers. A.J. Brown and Davis are really good. Jonnu Smith isn't really a bad tight end either. I think he can get past our linebackers. So it'll be interesting to see like who gets the last possession and how the first half goes in the game script.
And the Packers have no guy on their defensive line. Like Kenny Clark's a really good player, but he's not just a guy that can just disrupt an entire run game.
Mm-hmm.
He's just very good. And they have nobody on their defensive line that's just big and can just F up plays in the run game consistently. They have pass rushers, but with like Zadarius Smith and Preston Smith, but Preston Smith really struggles to set the edge in the run game. I know I've heard you complain about this so many times. And this could be the kind of game that's going to be a rough day for him because the Titans want to run the ball. That's what they want to do, and they're very willing to run the ball, and they're going to be able to run the ball.
Hopefully, Rashawn Gary's actually been getting a lot more snaps, which is good. I know he's been dealing with injuries, but he's a much better run defender. So it's interesting to see like if Pettin schemed it up to where they go for a bigger D line. They have a couple of guys who they just signed. One guy named Wynn, who's like he's one of those like just huge guys. He doesn't stop the run. So hopefully he's getting in more and they force him into third and longs and they can bring out a pass rushing package. But any other thoughts on the game?
No, it's going to be an awesome game to watch. I think this is a good revamp after the bland Giants versus Browns game. It's going to be an awesome game. Anytime you get to watch Aaron Rodgers play, it's always awesome. And I'm a Tannehill, if you will. I'm a big Ryan Tannehill believer. I think he's a top 10 quarterback. And I think that Miko Grimes created a bad perception of him in Miami, where he was actually a very good player for a while, even in spite of being coached by Adam Gase. So I'm really excited to see him on the national spotlight playing against Aaron Rodgers. I think he's going to have an awesome game. And it's going to be whoever gets the ball last, I think, will win this game.
And this game is going to have huge implications in both AFC and NFC. Like, if the Packers win, they pretty much secure first seed and home field advantage. Titans can maybe move past the Steelers to get third. If the Bills implode, I doubt they will, but, maybe second. I don't know.
Titans are still fighting for their division, too.
Yeah.
Colts are nipping at their heels.
And speaking of the Colts, that's one of the 325 games. So the Colts play the Steelers. What are your thoughts on this one, Vish?
Yeah, so for the Steelers, it's a must win. And we talked about the Steelers before. And for me, it's been the two things that have been the biggest factors in the Steelers this season. I'm not even going to get into their offensive play calling, which is horrendous. And, Big Ben has not been Big Ben. It looks like that Tommy John surgery has affected his arm strength and stuff. But the two biggest things is, one, the fact that other teams have had COVID breakouts on weeks they've had to play the Steelers. So the Steelers haven't had a proper bye week. So you can see that their players are exhausted and the attrition is starting to get to them. And number two, it's the injuries. Like, their defense is not that defense anymore. When you lose a player like Bud Dupree, who's one of the better edge players in the NFL, and Devin Bush, who's a baller, and you lose players of that caliber, of course your defense is going to start to get worse, especially when it gets tired, and that's what we're seeing happening to them. They're unable to run the ball, so their offense is one-dimensional, and it's one-dimensional, which means just throwing to three guys on short passes, and I don't think those three wide receivers are that great. I would actually rank them as Claypool, Deontay Johnson second, and Juju third. I think Juju's been wildly overrated based on one good season playing on the other side of Antonio Brown. So there's a lot of problems with the Steelers. This is a must win. I'm really interested to see how they stop the run because Jonathan Taylor has started to come along and the Colts are quietly picking up steam. We know how good their defense is, right? DeForest Buckner, Darius Leonard, two of the best defensive players in the NFL. And they rush the passer and play zone coverage and don't give up big plays and make you dink and dunk, which is kind of what the Steelers want to do, but they're going to be aggressive with their defensive line and their defensive backs. And so I on paper, just looking at the matchup, I don't know how the Steelers are going to win this game, but this is Mike Tomlin, who's their coach. And this is the Pittsburgh Steelers organization with a ton of pride, a ton of history. And, this just feels like a game that they'll somehow grind out and pull out and get their season back on track. But looking at the matchup, I can't see a way that the Steelers are going to win this game.
Yeah, I think the not being able to run the ball for the Steelers was a problem. That's been more recent, right? James Conner in the beginning of the year looked great. He's been injured. Benny Snell is Their run game's just not really that good. Let's face the facts.
It's not good schematically. It's not good
Yeah,
well blocked.
and they have 3 pretty good receivers, but none of them are like super good deep threats that Ben is like confident in going to. I'd say Claypool is probably the best out of those guys in getting vertical, right? And he was able to do that against the Eagles when he exploded for 4 touchdowns. But when I watch the Steelers, I don't know, that play against the Bengals where Judas got blown up, right, by Von Bell, like that's their offense. They go short routes. They try to run the ball, but they really can't. So I think they're going to have troubles with the Colts defense. Buckner is going to kill whoever he's going against because it's DeForest Buckner. And I think Matt Eberflus, so he's one of the head coach hot candidates right now. He's the DC of the Colts. I think he's going to get up a good scheme, and this is a huge game for them because I think right now a lot of people are expecting them to win. The odds on them winning were 1.5, or the spread was 1.5, and it moved to 3 pretty quickly. So people are betting Colts gonna win big, and I think they will. Their offense is picking up steam. Rivers can do enough. We'll see.
Yeah, as long as Phillip Rivers doesn't have a Phillip Rivers heavy turnover game, I just don't see anything for the Steelers here. Like, their pass rush and creative blitzes can be neutralized by the fact that Rivers has seen it all, and the Colts have a great offensive line, and they're going to be willing to run the ball. Frank Reich's a great game planner, so they're going to have a good offensive game plan to move the ball. And how is the Steelers' offense going to be able to function against the Colts? They can't throw the ball down the field, and the pass rush is going to whip that offensive line, which is not that good anymore. Like, the days of Villanueva, DeCastro, and Pouncey all being Pro Bowl level players are past them. They're not the same. Everybody's kind of oldish. I don't want to overreact because of all the factors I said before that the Steelers have had to deal with this season, which I think have been underrated in how much they've affected them. But I just don't see a way Pittsburgh pulls out this game.
And the Colts have been really good as I've won their last 6 games. They lost to the Titans when half their defense was on COVID, so I'm not gonna hold that against them. Tomlin losing 4 in a row. Can you see that happening? It looks like it might. I don't know. We'll see. Next game is going to be the Seahawks and Rams. I'm pretty sure this is the Monday night game. This has a huge implication. If you want to answer this
quick. Yeah, this is not a comparison at all. The Niners had the number 2 offense in the NFL. There's no comparison between the Steelers and the 2019 Niners. There's no comparison.
But, yeah, so what do you think about Seahawks-Rams? That's the Monday night game.
Yeah.
For the NFC West.
Yeah, so something that always makes me jealous about the Rams is that under McVay, they play Seattle incredibly well. They go into Seattle and win like it's nothing with Jared Goff as their quarterback.
Even with Jeff Fisher, they did that, right?
Right, yeah. Oh, yeah, with Jeff Fisher, they always used to play spoiler 1 out of 2 against the Seahawks. You're right. So that's always bothered me about them, and so I think this game is going to be more of the same. It's tough to bet against Russell Wilson on a primetime game. His primetime record is kind of ridiculous. Mm-hmm. And the Seahawks defense has been playing better, though they've been playing a lot of bad offenses. And the Rams are coming off that ugly loss to the Jets. It all depends on which Jared Goff we're going to get. I mean, McVay, for the most part, protects him with every game plan. But if you get a semblance of pressure on him, even with all the protection he gets from the game plan, he just folds and he doesn't play quarterback well at all. I think the Rams defense is going to be amped up and they're going to play a great game. I think DK Metcalf, he's going to have a better game than what he had against the first time against Jalen Ramsey, but I still think Jalen Ramsey is going to do a number on him. The Rams pass rush is going to dominate. Aaron Donald's going to be ready to go. I think the Rams defense are going to play well. So I think it's going to be a low-scoring defensive struggle type thing. And it's going to come down to how many times does Jared Goff turn the ball over if he does. Because, he might have one of those good Goff games where McVay rolls him out 25, 30 times and he finishes the game 40 for 50 and 350 yards and 2 touchdowns with no picks, like he played against the Bucs, where it's a million short passes, million rollouts. Everything's easy, but he keeps completing them. And before you know it, he's completed 40 passes.
Yeah. The DK Metcalf and Ramsey matchup, I think it's going to be even better than last time. I think DK is going to do better than he did kind of hard to do worse. He was what, like 3 for 30 or something like that.
Something like that. Here, I can pull it up right now.
But he has to do, and I think that's kind of the key is Metcalf gets shut down. We know Lockett's good, but I don't think he can carry a whole offense by himself. Carson being back will help them a lot. I mean, Chris Carson's a beast. Do you have the stats on him?
2 for 28.
Yeah, so even worse. You know, that matchup's huge. And Aaron Donald, I feel like he always feasts against Seattle's bad O-line. Like, he's always in the backfield on Russell. And they have a better pass rush presence this year, I feel like. Floyd's really done well. This is a different Rams team than the last few years. I mean, they did make the Super Bowl, but it's just their defense is better than those teams in my eyes. It'll be interesting to see how the Seahawks play against a defense that's been one of the best in the NFL.
To me, the Rams have a Super Bowl level defense. I really believe that even after the loss to the Jets, which was ugly, I think they have a great defensive coordinator in Brandon Staley, and I think they do have a Super Bowl level defense. And if they do have one, this is the game to show it. Russell Wilson, prime time. This simulates a playoff game, and this is going to be basically for the division. So I think that I'm not going to pick a winner right now because I'm not exactly sure yet. I need to see a couple more things, sleep on it, and decide. But I think it's going to be a great game. And I think the 2 primetime games this week are just awesome with one, the Sunday, in the terms of Sunday night, Monday night, with the Sunday night, the Packers-Titans, which is amazing. And then the NFC West, Rams, Seahawks basically battle for who wins it.
So I'm actually going to disagree on you with the Rams defense. I don't think they're like a Super Bowl defense that is one of those that can just completely carry an offense. Like when I think of Super Bowl defenses, I think of 2015 Broncos. I think of the Legion of Boom defenses where, you know, they allowed 8 points, right? Like they could have scored 20. That Patriots defense that held the Rams to 3. 2017 Jags, 2018 Bears.
Defenses that score themselves.
Yes, that's the thing. It's forcing turnovers at just a stupid rate. Like that Bears defense forced what, like 40 turnovers or something?
Yeah.
Like at least two to 3 a game. That's the type of defense that's in my mind like a Super Bowl defense that can just carry a roster. I don't think the Rams have it. I think they're pretty close. If they had another like just super good pass rusher, or if they had a man in the middle that was like a Kendricks or like Warner, I think they would be there.
Yeah.
I don't think they're that type of a defense.
Yeah, I would say the 2011 Niners would be in that conversation. That offense wasn't good, and they carried them to the NFC Championship game.
Yeah,
I'm sure it's that type of defense. And yeah, that is a point. I think that the Rams, in theory, on paper, have a better offense than a lot of those teams you named. So I think there's a good chance that maybe you can get a little better off. Their defense can be
they don't have
Super Bowl level defense that way. I think looking at the NFL and how it is right now, they do have the best defense in the NFL, and they have the kind of defense that can go through the playoffs, shutting down every single offense in the NFC because there's no Chiefs in the NFC. And if they do get to the Super Bowl, they have a guy in Ramsey who can give Tyreek Hill or Travis Kelce, and you can take one of those guys out with him. He's that good. So I think it's really interesting. We'll see.
And so before we move to NBA, did you guys have any NFL questions that you like, burning NFL questions? Because I think we should do that before we transition to NBA stuff.
Yeah, and always, guys, if you can, please like, subscribe, share the video, hit the notification bell, the usual stuff every YouTuber says. And we appreciate you joining us for this live stream. I'll tweet out when we go again, and I'm sure Blake will post from the channel if you want it that way when we're going to go live again. And as always, we'll cut up some of these videos and post them on our channel. Do view them if you can. Of course, Blake posted a betting video, so if you want to see a betting guide with his picks, I would check that out.
So this was you want to do this question or the one above?
We can do both.
All right. I say we just start with this one as the first.
Sure.
So I think their defense has improved, and someone who's been a catalyst for that is Carlos Dunlap. Getting him in the middle of the season was kind of a big thing for them. One thing they're missing is a pass rush, and he helps with that a pretty decent amount. Just making it even formidable is like would be a huge improvement for what they had. They don't really have a really number one pass rush guy. Jerron Reed would probably be that, but I wouldn't say that's like a really good playoff team's best pass rusher, right?
Yeah, so Jerron Reed, Poona Ford, pretty good players, right? Carlos Dunlap I think their defense has improved. It's better. They're playing more scheme sound, and Jamal Adams is blitzing, and they're doing all these kinds of things, and they're healthier. That helps. And they got two really good middle linebackers. It's not just Bobby Wagner. I totally omitted KJ Wright. I think KJ Wright should have been a Pro Bowler. You could have argued in many different years. He's a guy that's gone totally under the radar because he's unassuming. He's quiet. He just goes and does his job. But he's a terrific player that's been a very, very, very good player for a long time. Their defense, I think, also has benefited from playing offenses like the Washington football team, the Jets. Those kind of offenses really will elevate any defense. So I think it's twofold. I think their defense is better, but I think they've also played worse competition. So their defense, in reality, it's not as bad as what it was, but it's not as good as what it's showing. It's somewhere in the middle where to me, it's still not a good defense, but it's not a bad one anymore.
It's definitely better than it was. So this was, I actually didn't even see this one. I just saw it. But who do you think comes out of the NFC? I think it boils down to two teams, and that's Saints Packers. When I think of the NFC West teams, I just don't think the Seahawks defense is what it was. So boom, I don't think they'll make it. The Rams, I still think that offense is just not where it should be. Like they can't run the ball like they used to with Gurley. And I don't think Goff's going to be able to go in somewhere and win a game himself multiple times to be able to get them to the Super Bowl. So eliminate those teams. I think the Bears or Vikings will probably make it as like the last seed, right? I don't see either.
Yeah, they're totally out for me. So I think Arizona's just too young, so I wouldn't say them. For me, I would still give Seattle a puncher's shot just because you have Russell Wilson and you have a defense that's always been opportunistic, even though it's bad. It's always been opportunistic, which means they can force turnovers. I've always said the Saints when I've been asked this question the last few weeks, but the more I think about it, I'm not sure if I can trust Drew Brees in the playoffs. I think he's been one of the more underwhelming playoff performers throughout his career that people have kind of just shrugged off his lackluster play in the playoffs. It hasn't been that good. And, you know, him coming off this serious injury in his last season at 41, what is he, 41? I'm not sure if he can play at a level that's required for them to make the Super Bowl. They definitely have the best team, but if they don't make it, then I would just go with Aaron Rodgers because that's just the guy I believe in the most. The Rams and the best teams are probably the Rams and the Saints, but I just don't believe there's no way I'm picking the Rams with Jared Goff as their quarterback. It's really hard to do that. McVay can only do so much for him. There's going to be times where he's got to make throws under pressure, and he just doesn't seem to be able to do that.
And then Giants or football team, I just don't think they'll make it. Whether it's Danny Dimes or Colt McCoy, and then whether it's Haskins or Alex Smith, I'm actually kind of surprised. You know, those teams have actually won as many games as they did, considering how bad that division got off to, like the start it got off to. So,
yeah, I'm surprised one of them might actually get to 7 wins, possibly.
Yeah, no, it's definitely better than I expected.
I feel the same way. I don't want to see the Chiefs win again, but they seem to be trending that way. Not only do they have the best team, they also have the only team that doesn't have a serious injury anywhere besides maybe Mitch Schwartz, and he could be coming back. Every other team has one or two very important players hurt, and the Chiefs are sitting here with Mahomes, Kelsey, Clyde Edwards, or maybe Clyde Edwards-Helaire, he just got hurt, but they still have Mahomes, Kelsey, Tyreek Hill, Frank Clark, Chris Jones, Tyrann Mathieu, all sitting here ready to go. So they've done a really good job managing the COVID, managing the attrition of the season. It seems that they're going to repeat.
Yeah, and I think they've won like 22 out of their last 23, which is just, I mean, that's incredible. They've only won a game this year. To the Raiders, for some reason, I'm kind of baffled. They almost lost to them twice. Yeah, I think Chiefs are kind of trending in that way. I think the two teams to look out for in the AFC that could dethrone them are the Colts and the Bills. I think those are the only two teams in the AFC that could dethrone them.
I think Tennessee can. I like Tennessee's chances.
I just think their pass defense is so bad that they're going to have trouble stopping them.
Where I see it with Tennessee is that we've seen good defenses too. The Chiefs are still going to score 30. But I think Tennessee has the offense to outscore them. So it doesn't matter, I think, if Tennessee's defense gives up points, because I don't think the Chiefs' defense can really stop Tennessee's offense. They did it last year for a bit, but I think Tennessee's offense has taken it to another level this year. And if they try to play aggressively to stop Derrick Henry, because they have a lot of big people and they're capable of doing it, I think Ryan Tannehill can carve them up this year in Tennessee with Corey Davis, A.J. Brown, Adam Humphries, Jonnu Smith. It's a loaded offense.
Their defense, the Chiefs' defense has actually been kind of a
very good,
underwhelming story, or underlying under the rug story. They're top 10 in scoring.
Yeah, no, it's a
really, really good job. I mean, you watched the Saints game, Tony Romo and Jim just kept pointing it out that when they run man, there's not much separation, and the Saints, they don't have Lample or Thomas on their roster right now. He's out. But their defense is really nothing no one talks about, but they're good.
It is excellent, right? They have two top level players in Matthew and Chris Jones, and Spagnuolo is extremely creative, and he does a lot of different things to confuse you. I just still think that that's not enough to stop this Titans offense with A.J. Brown and Corey Davis and Jonnu Smith and Ryan Tannehill playing as the quarterback, who, to me, if there's a throw to be made, Ryan Tannehill, he sees it, he always makes it. He's as good as anybody in terms of playing just within your offense and getting what your offense gives you. He's not like Mahomes, where if your offense gives you nothing, he'll still get you a 50-yard completion. But if it's there, I feel like Ryan Tannehill always makes the correct decision and the correct throw.
And I think the Bills are also a pretty good shot for a team. Their offense has been amazing this year, and their defense, so they started off pretty rough. But, I mean, as of late, they got Matt Milano back. A.J. Klein's been doing better. Their secondary is still just incredible. I think they're a team that could honestly, they could play a close game with the Chiefs. I don't know. After watching Josh Allen last year in the playoffs, I was kind of worried for them because he just, I don't know, he looked out of control. He's been a lot better this year. It'll be interesting to see if they can maybe take him on and do well.
Yeah, we were asked this question on the last live show, and we both said the Bills. And it's not just that their defense is playing better; it's because I think they're the only team in the AFC and maybe in the AFC that has a quarterback that on a given Sunday he can do every single thing that Mahomes can do. And if he has he's just not as consistent as Mahomes. Mm-hmm. And if he has one of those games where he is doing all those things, then I think that the Bills have the best shot of anybody. I'd say Bills, Titans. I can't say Colts. I think Phillip Rivers would struggle mightily versus the Chiefs defense. I think he would be interception city against the type of pressure they put.
He's their biggest question mark because their roster, they have a good O-line. Their weapons, skill positions, are not the best, but they're not bad at all. And their defense is one of the top in the league. It just comes down to, is Phillip Rivers going to make the turnovers, or is he actually going to play smart and sound football? So it's tough.
So you want to get into basketball? It's back.
Yeah, sure. We can do that. So I guess we could talk about the first game, the Nets and the Warriors. What were your thoughts watching that one?
Yeah, I mean, first, it was awesome to see basketball back in a non-bubble fashion. I wish that, you could see it with crowds roaring and everything, but obviously, for obvious reasons, that's not possible or even a thing that we should be talking about. It's sad that we can't, but so that's the reality of. I was really surprised by how well the Nets played right off the bat. I expected both the Nets and the Warriors to kind of struggle immediately just because they're both integrating new types of rosters. But the Warriors look like what I expected, and the Nets just look like a well-oiled machine, like a championship team that had been playing well together. We'll see if that continues. Kevin Durant looked like Kevin Durant, so that's a good thing. He moved like Kevin Durant. He was shooting like Kevin Durant. He was doing everything like Kevin Durant. And Kyrie Irving, we get so caught up into Kyrie Irving's antics about what he says, not talking to the media, all these different things that we sometimes, at least for me, I just forget sometimes how good Kyrie Irving is. And he's unbelievable. And he can be the best point guard in the NBA in any game that he plays. It's just the questions with him and his personality. But yeah, the Nets, it's promising. I don't want to overreact to one game, but the Nets look very promising, and the Warriors look like the Warriors, and they're going to be in a battle to get into a playoff spot in the West.
Yeah. So when I was watching the Nets, my first thoughts were KD looks like he has never been injured at all. He looked fine. And I think one thing about Kyrie is he's better suited as the number 2 guy who can be someone who just like plays ISO. And as a number 1, I feel like that doesn't work. I feel like you have to be a better distributor, kind of like that LeBron. Kawhi to some extent is the better passer than Kyrie is and like shot creator. But when Kyrie's the number 2, he excels because not all the pressure's on him. And that's something he didn't have on the Celtics, right? He was kind of the number 1, but on the Cavs with LeBron, he was the number 2, and we saw how good he did. So having defenses focus more on KD than Kyrie is going to help Kyrie tremendously. And for the Warriors, Oubre and Wiggins they shot terribly. Steph didn't do as much as I thought he would. I kind of thought he would go ballistic this year.
They were missing Draymond.
Yeah, they were missing Draymond, which would have helped a lot with all like the defensive deficiencies and whatnot. But I thought Steph would have done more in kind of the first half because it was a blowout right after the first quarter and a half, probably I'd say. So I thought Steph was going to do more to play like his former MVP self, but he didn't. And
yeah,
I'm worried. But what do you think about Nets in the East? So I know they're probably a top 3 team in the East right now, and it's a star-driven league. They're kind of the only team in the East with 2 just like bona fide proven stars in my eyes.
No, I think the Celtics have 2 stars in Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. None at the level of Kevin Durant, but I think Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are in the top. I think Jason Tatum for sure is the top 15 player in the NBA, which Kyrie Irving is also. Huh?
I'd say they're a notch below. I wouldn't say they're stars. I'd say they're all stars, but I wouldn't say they're like KD's a superstar. He was a top 5 player for multiple years. Kyrie on the Cavs looked like a top 10 player, you know?
Yeah.
Real quick, they're not there yet.
Real quick with the Warriors, I did want to shout out that James Wiseman looked great.
Yeah,
he did.
He looks promising.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. I really like Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, and I think this is the year they both elevate to where people say they're more than just all-stars, especially Tatum. And I think Brown's just been underrated because he's an all-NBA level defensive player, which Kyrie Irving isn't a good defensive player. So I really think that the Celtics are the one team that could give the Nets trouble. I don't believe in the Bucks at all. I just don't believe that much in Giannis as a playoff player. And I hate doing that to minimize players, especially because Giannis has had not the best help and not the best supporting cast. I mean, Eric Bledsoe in the playoffs is not the best. But for me with Giannis, there's just a lack of a well-rounded game, and it gets exposed every year and people harp on it. But it's not just the three-point shooting or the jump shooting. The thing they talked about this year is that they're going to put him in the post more. We'll see. He hasn't had the most refined or well-rounded post game thus far in his career, and he doesn't have like the greatest touch around the basket, like say a Zion Williamson, where it feels like every shot he puts up just goes in because his touch is that good. So we'll see if he's better around the basket that way. I just don't think the Bucks have enough surrounding him, and I don't think he's good enough to just elevate them for them to be at the level of Boston and the Nets.
My thing with Boston is I don't think Kemba as a third player is good enough. If your top 2 players are not like bona fide top 5 players, I just don't think Kemba is like. I just don't think he's good enough, and he's getting paid a lot. I think he's like a top 10 point guard, but he's like towards the lower end of that. If he was like a top 5 point guard, like I don't know, any of the top 5 point guards really, you could say he's in there. I would throw the Bucks in there. This is the best roster they've had with Giannis. Adding Drew Holiday's huge. Torrey Craig, nice. And then the Heat. What do you think about them? Do you think they have anything? Because I personally, I'm kind of anti-Heat, like making it back.
Yeah, I'm not bullish on the Heat doing what they did last year. I think they have an awesome team, awesome story, but I think the bubble contributed a little bit to how they succeeded, because I think there's a road playoff game and stuff would have been a different animal just because of the style of the all-around team play they had with the veterans they had and stuff. Like, I think a Tyler Hero, I'm not sure. Like, it's not that he isn't really good. He's really good, really talented, but I'm not sure if he would have had that historic level of playoffs as a rookie if he had to go play in Boston and play in Indiana and stuff like that. I think he would have been good, but not that level. I don't know. I think the Nets, I think the East is crazy good, like crazy good. I think it's underrated how good it is, because I think you have 4 teams that could legitimately win it in terms of the Bucks, even though I'm not the highest on them. The Nets, the Boston Celtics, and then possibly I think the Miami Heat and maybe even Philly now that they have some shooting.
Raptors.
Yeah, and maybe even Philly now that they have some shooting around Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid.
Yeah, the East will be tough. Going over to the West though, the Clippers, Lakers, that looked like it was going to be a blowout at first with the Clippers. They got out to a fast start. Lakers brought it back. It was close in the end. Clippers won, I believe, right?
Yeah. Non-pandemic P went crazy.
I wasn't able to watch all of it. Were you able to?
Yeah, I watched the whole thing. Non-pandemic P. This was not pandemic P. Paul George was awesome. He looked like Paul George, and that's why I've always been a fan of Paul George, even though he hasn't been the player that people thought he would be originally in Indiana. It's because on any given game, Paul George, because of his ability to score in 3 different levels, his ability to shoot, his handle, the fact that he's 6'8", and the fact that he's a top-flight defensive player, he can be the best player on the floor with LeBron, with Anthony Davis, with Kawhi Leonard. It's just a matter of he's so inconsistent, and he was that good. So I don't know. I'm not going to put too much stock into one game because the Lakers were kind of playing it like a preseason game with how inconsistent the minutes were for LeBron and Anthony Davis and how many backups played. I can't put too much into it. I do think the Clippers have a better roster than last year, though.
Yeah, I think both teams definitely improved their roster. You know, the Clippers, who'd they really lose? Like JaMychal Green, Trez, I think a couple other guys, but
Ibaka, Nick Batum, and Luke Kennard more than make up for those losses.
Yeah. And one player on their team who I think will get less minutes because of those acquisitions is Lou Williams. And I don't think he's been himself like 6th man of the year, like what you would think of when you think of 6th man of the year. Like Schroeder, I think he's phenomenal. He played really good for the Lakers in my eyes, from what I watched. I don't know. I just think Sweet Lou Will is he's kind of trending downward, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think he's still going to be Lou Williams, 22, 23 minutes, 24, 25 minutes. And he's still going to hit some big shots and have games where he goes off because of his incredible scoring skill. But I think as you get deeper in the playoffs and you play bigger games, he's just a guy you can't have on the floor because he's such a big defensive liability. And so that's what it's going to come down to. And I do think physicality affects Lou Williams. That's what the Lakers kind of showed the first time they beat the Clippers last year, and Avery Bradley played great. So the game that was not the Christmas, it was kind of the game before the pandemic and the lockdown and everything started when the Lakers beat them that one time. And yeah, that's where I would go with Lou Williams, but I don't think they need him to play extensive minutes with the type of wing defenders they have in Ibaka this year. I meant to do this. This is a good question to me. Can the Pelicans get the 8th seed? And I'm gonna have to say no. Their roster is really talented. They're really good. I think they'll definitely be in the tournament. But if you look at the teams from last year, I think all 6 of the 8 teams have a very good shot. I mean, if you discount the Rockets because of James Harden basically going MIA and just kind of not wanting to play for them anymore. And then the OKC Thunder without Chris Paul, maybe Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, but no Gallo too. I don't think they're going to be there. But
Probably
you still
not.
have 6 teams, and then you add Memphis, that when Jaren Jackson gets healthy, they have 2 legit young players in John and Jaren Jackson, so they're going to be in the conversation. You throw in the Spurs because Lonnie Walker, Keldon Johnson, they looked great opening night. They're going to be in the conversation. The Warriors are going to be in the conversation. That's 3. The Suns are going to be in the conversation. That's 4. And then you throw in the Pelicans. That's 5 different teams vying for 2 spots that are going to be available. So I'm going to go with no.
I honestly think they could, and like we mentioned, so we talked like, can Zion live up to the hype? And we said probably not, and that's because the hype was like the next LeBron. Like, that's what he was getting hyped up as. He's still going to put up a quiet 20 points, and I think Brandon Ingram is actually he's coming into like what he was drafted to be, like an absolute menace on offense. The Slim Reaper, as some would say, like the KD clone. But no, he played really well last night, and I think they will. Losing Drew Holiday is kind of tough, but Lonzo is decent. I don't know. I think they'll push more now that Zion's healthy.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. They looked great opening night. They really did. Zion looked great. He took 9 shots to score 15 points. Brandon Ingram looked like Brandon Ingram. Lonzo shot it well, which is always a good thing because he can have a month where he shoots the ball well. I think the big thing for them is they're going to be a horrific free throw shooting team. They're going to be horrible at shooting free throws. Besides Redick and Ingram, who's really improved, there's not a good free throw shooter on that team. Steven Adams is a bad free throw shooter. Zion's a bad free throw shooter. Lonzo's a terrible free throw shooter. And to win close playoff type games, you got to be able to make free throws. And I don't think they can.
Yeah, it'll be pretty close. And then I think we should just go with more questions. So here's one. And so I actually watched the Mavericks game last night, the Mavericks Suns, and the ending was kind of hard to watch. It wasn't a great game. Like, just bad basketball, a lot of like just those nitpicky fouls that like the superstars get. Like, there was a lot of those. So I don't know how much Porzingis gonna be missing out, but I don't think he will. And one of the main things with MVP is this was bearing Russell Westbrook's 2017 MVP, where his team was in a top 3 seed. Your team has to perform at like a top 5 level, right? Like, you have to be one of the 3 or 4 best teams in the league. So that means like top 3 seed in the West. They will not be a top 3 seed in the West. They just won't be. Like, without Porzingis, even with him, I don't think they would be. I don't think he will. I understand the hype around him, though. He looked great against the Clippers. I don't think he's there yet, and I don't think he'll win MVP. I don't know who will. I don't think Giannis will. Like, maybe KD does if he comes back and plays amazing.
Yeah. So if the
Nets, right?
Sorry, I interrupted you, but I agree with you. If the Nets are a top 2 seed in the East, the MVP is going to be Kevin Durant, just because of him coming back from his Achilles. That story. It's more about the story than it is about the player. That's what I've always learned watching sports, because if it was just about the players, LeBron James would have 10 MVPs. Michael Jordan, when he played, would have 10 MVPs. But there's a lot of story that has to do with it. And so I think if the Nets are a top 2 seed, it'll be Kevin Durant. I pick Luka to win it in the preseason, and I still think he's got a good shot. I think it really hurts that their team is just him or nothing right now without Kristaps Porzingis. And they don't have a lot around him, just reliable people to make shots. But I still think he's more than capable. And I think he's going to put up triple-double type numbers this season. And if he puts up double type numbers and they're a top 4 seed, I have no question that he would be in the conversation and maybe he would win it.
Yeah, it's just being a top 4 seed in the West. You have to compete with the Lakers, Clippers, Nuggets. I mean, even if he's the 4 seed, which I don't think he will, because I mean those 3 teams are definitely better than the Mavericks. Like, he would have to be the 4 seed, and he would have to he would have to average a triple double. And even if he does, like, if the Nets are the 1 or 2 seed, like, I think KD would probably get in that point. And who knows, maybe Giannis does even better than he did last regular season, and he gets it. I don't think he will, but it's not the most improbable thing in the world.
So I think Giannis is going to get to a point where people are kind of he's going to get stale, which means that
right?
yeah, until he does something in the playoffs now, it's going to be basically well, whatever you do in the regular season, it's what you did the last 2 years, so it's not better, so we're not going to give you MVP. And yes, I totally agree with this. That's why if Luka gets to I was thinking if he gets to the 4th seed, it would be James Harden-esque, because James Harden has carried some pretty bad teams with some pretty hurt rosters pretty high to a pretty high seed in the Western Conference.
Yeah. Another question. So thoughts on LaMelo, and it's very concerning seeing a point guard that can't shoot because, like, throughout the last few years, it's been a major problem. You think of Lonzo, you think of Emmanuel Mudiay, you think of Frank Ntilikina. They can't. Yeah. The point guards that can't shoot really struggle to do well. Now, one with LaMelo is he has a really good ball handle and he's an amazing passer, so he has like way more potential than any of those dudes just based on that. But not being able to shoot is like kind of a death sentence for point guards at this point. Like, you think of the best point guards, they at least have like a 35% 3-point shot or like a good scorer, right? So I think that'll be his biggest downfall is our biggest thing to look into is like if he can develop a jump shot, he will be what people think he can be, which is like a 6'7" elite ball handler, like playmaker. But if he can't develop a jump shot and teams don't respect him from the 3-point line, he'll get like sort of a Ben Simmons treatment where like dare him to shoot. And the man doesn't even – I wouldn't even call it a jump shot at this point. The man jumps like 4 inches off the ground.
It's a push shot.
It's pretty funky looking.
He pushes the ball.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I actually disagree. I think his shot it's bad. He's not a good shooter, but I think he's just in a historically bad slump, and I think he'll be fine. I think he's had a rough start in the preseason. I think he's had a rough start in terms of his regular season. But I think as he gets comfortable with the pace of the game, he's going to be fine. And I think LaMelo is actually going to be closer to what people thought Lonzo would be, which would be a Jason Kidd type that would average like 15, 8, and 8. And I don't think LaMelo is ever going to be a Penny Hardaway type player just because I don't think he's an elite athlete. And to be an elite player in the NBA, you normally have to be an elite athlete. So he's extremely skilled. He's going to be a savvy passer, solid like rebounder, a good get a decent amount of assists and score here and there just based on savvy, but I don't think he's going to be a 20-plus point a game scorer ever, even if his shot improves.
Yeah, but getting a shot is big, and he's not the best defender either.
No, he's not good at it at all.
He's not really a good defender. I think he could be average just based on the fact of like height and like, I don't know, he's kind of figured out like being a really good passer and stuff. Like hopefully he'll develop athletically. So
you want to call it here, or you want to take one more question, or what?
We can do this other question. So he was someone who at least. So I'll go first, but seeing him up to the pre-draft when he said if he got drafted to the NFL, he'd rather be there, and he also said that he finds the NBA boring to watch. I think that's a huge, huge red flag, and it's given me some Andrew Wiggins vibes. #1 pick, super athletic. Timberwolves. That's a big problem for me. I think you have to love the game to like be truly, truly like a really good player. He did look. I think he did pretty good compared to most of the other rookies. I think he had like 15 points or something. But that worried me significantly. The fact that he doesn't have the drive to be a good player.
Well, we don't know if he doesn't have the drive because we don't know him. So that's not exactly like fair to say.
He said he'd rather be in the NFL, and he said he also finds NBA boring. He finds the sport of basketball.
But I mean, not every player likes to watch the NBA. He said it honestly.
Yeah.
Fair, just to be fair to him, he looks talented. He looks athletic, but I agree with you on the Andrew Wiggins comparison in the sense that I don't think he's ever going to be like an all-star or star type player. I think he's just going to be a pretty good one.
Yeah, and with your #1 pick, you'd hope for better. This class was kind of like it's been known as like a weaker class or talked about as a weaker class. We'll see if that actually comes to fruition and like these guys aren't like that, but that's my thing with him is I'm worried, like, if you find something boring and you have to be in the gym doing that for 10 to 12 hours a day to be great, it's a problem. I mean, it's just simply put, it's a problem.
I mean, where I would defend him is I guess he finds watching the NBA boring. He never said he finds playing basketball boring.
Well,
So if he's willing to play basketball, he doesn't have to watch the NBA. And I don't mind if this draft class is weak at all, as long as Killian Hayes turns out to be a super duper star and the Pistons go to the finals.
I mean, my thing is, like, if he's bored watching it and he has to watch film on players' tendencies, do you think he's really going to enjoy doing that? And
Well, he might be bored by the NBA presentation. Like, not everybody wants to sit and watch LeBron play somebody else in their free time. But if he has to do it as his job to make money, he might be a professional that way and be willing to do it.
I don't know. We'll see, right? We'll see how his career.
We'll see, yeah. But I mean, yeah, I didn't want to just take I just don't take those comments at face value. But there's definitely a point. You definitely have a point. There's what you said definitely has validity.
This is a pretty I think this will probably be our last question. We've gone longer than we wanted to, but this is kind of a big topic. I don't think we've talked about this yet. Vish, what are your thoughts on LeBron to pass MJ?
Can he? I don't know. I think those who think MJ's the GOAT are always going to think MJ's the GOAT. Those who already think LeBron's the GOAT are going to think LeBron's the GOAT regardless. It comes up to you. For me, I didn't get to see Michael Jordan, so it's tough for me to just sit here and say, oh, MJ's the GOAT for sure. And then it's tough for me to just say LeBron's the GOAT for sure because I didn't see Michael Jordan. Just based on the highlights and stuff, maybe Jordan was better. But for me, LeBron is definitely the best player I've ever seen, and I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, so I'm probably like farther MJ than LeBron. And so if we talk about this religiously, and one thing that is such a good point is the Mavericks series and how badly that's tainted LeBron's career. And if you're arguing with someone and you tell them, or they just bring up like, hey, does your GOAT, like, just look at the Mavs series. You'll see he gets torched by Jason Terry, like, throughout the series. He fails to score more than Terry. And this was kind of his first big test. One of the things that people like to hold against LeBron is, like, teaming up with people, which I don't really have too big of a problem with, I guess. But I would say if he had to pass MJ, I'd say he'd need to probably win, at least go 6-6 in NBA Finals and win the Finals MVP. And I think it's more of a issue of can he win the Finals MVP and actually win than getting, because I think he'll get there. I don't know if he'll win though. So that's just my thoughts.
So with this real quick, I think LeBron actually has the most playoff game winners in NBA history. But I'll say to you, like, how somebody like some people I know that watch Jordan, watch LeBron said, and I don't know if this is just a perception, because sometimes perception and reality aren't exactly the same. And I think that the way players are covered has a lot to do with perception. And LeBron has a notorious hater in the media who's driven a lot of narratives around about him, and Jordan didn't have that guy. But the one thing I will say is that people, the way they describe it to me is that whenever LeBron has a big game, they're never sure if he's going to win it. With Jordan, there was a big game and your team was playing against the Bulls. You always felt that your team didn't have a chance because no matter what, Jordan was going to get the job done. And his career, if you look through it, it bears out that he was a big-time player every single time. So, yeah. And then real quick with Kobe, he's probably the second best player I've ever seen. I love Kobe, RIP. But for me, LeBron, the way he controls the game, the way he controls everybody around him is just beyond special to me.
Yeah. And I do. As much as I think MJ is better than LeBron, I think the narrative and just like the media's kind of hurt LeBron a lot. The fact that, he'll put like a 40. I think of this scenario. I think it was 2018, and they played the Warriors. It was their first game come back from the the Rocket series, which was awesome. LeBron had a 50-point triple-double. It was the infamous J.R. Smith didn't pass LeBron the ball, like he dribbled the clock out after Hill missed the free throw, right? Like, people hold that game against him, and I just don't see like how you can do that. He dragged that team against possibly the best team we've ever seen, and like people hold that against him. They're like, oh, he doesn't have killer instinct. Like he didn't win. Like how could you say this man's better than MJ? Like MJ would have pulled this out. Like I don't know. I just think he gets like overly criticized.
Yeah, that's just hypothetical.
Kind of annoying.
You don't know that. Nobody knows that. That's why I just don't like even getting into this debate.
Yeah.
It's just different eras. Everybody's going to have a different opinion on it. The bottom line is they're all super great. And, and we're all privileged to just be able to watch their careers play out. And guys, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. We'll be on again soon. I'll tweet out about it, so keep an eye on my Twitter. Blake will post about it on our YouTube, so whichever one works better for you, you can see it from there. And thank you so much for joining us for an hour and 40 minutes. It was a pleasure having you guys. As always, we'll be cutting up these videos, so please check them out on our channel as individual clips. Please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell, all the stuff every YouTuber says. And regarding if you're a bettor and you're interested in betting, Blake has posted a betting guide on our channel. He posts it weekly. Do check it out. Thank you so much for joining us. Happy holidays. We appreciate all of you.
Real quick, we saw that, so we put up that poll. There's like 100 people that voted or whatever. So the one that won was draft steals. It had about 50%. Me and Vish want to do that, and we're probably going to make an episode out of it.
We'll do it at the end of the season.
Okay, yeah, end of the season. So that'll be like its own, like, Blake and Vish Sports episode 10 or like 12 or whatever, and it'll be like that will be the main topic. So we're going to get that out to you. And then another thing we're looking forward to doing is ranking the second-year wide receivers. So we ranked the first-year wide receivers, and that got some good reception. People seem to like that type. We ranked corners. That was well liked too. So we're going to rank second-year wide receivers, and there's a lot of good ones. So think of like DK, Metcalf, A.J. Brown, Scary Terry McLaurin, all those guys. So,
Deebo Samuel. So, yeah, stay tuned. That stuff is coming up. Yeah, and we'll probably do the draft steals at the end of the season just to let the season play out. But Colts fans with Kenny Moore, Panthers fans with Jeremy Chin, keep an eye because they'll definitely make the list. Stay tuned. Thanks, guys.